Good afternoon. Formally open the Troy Planning Commission meeting for Wednesday, January 26, 2022. We have roll call, please.
Mrs. Ehrlich? Here. Mr. Westmeyer?
Here.
Mr. McGarry?
Here.
Mayor? Here. Mr. Titterington?
Here.
Mr. Wolke?
Here.
Mr. Cappers? We have a quorum.
Okay, so the second item of business is the approval of the minutes from the January 12th, 2022 meeting. And I understand there's been one correction.
Right, it's corrected to the original minutes to reflect that Mr. Wolke was in attendance.
Okay. Is there any other revisions, deletions, or changes or comments from the?
Move for approval.
Second.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Okay, the first item of business is the DRO Downtown Riverfront Overlay District application for 112 through 118 West Main Street. The owner applicant is 116 West Main Street LLC. Staff have a report.
Yes, we do. At the January 12th, 2022 Planning Commission meeting, an introduction was made to the Planning Commission regarding the application of a downtown riverfront overlay, or DRO, being proposed to the development. This was requested due to the height of the proposed structure, which exceeds the maximum allowance of the B3 Central Business District. The proposed structure height is primarily 50 feet, with the rear structure height at 53 feet. Due to the elevator shaft. So the B3 Central Business District permits a height of 35 feet. In your packet, I won't read through them, but it's the requirements for the DRO process of what the decision should be made on. I think there's 17 criteria that are being based. And the DRO was created. The intent was for the district to be applied when conventional zoning requirements are inappropriate for the underlying zoning district or unduly restrictive. In this case here, I think it's the reuse or the new proposed structure that would be built on site would match in height at least the current structure, with the difference being the 3 feet in the back for the elevator shaft. The current structure is 50 feet. So the DRO is to be applied so it could be rebuilt. You have the information in your packet. Staff does recommend approval. Based upon the proposed development is new construction in the historic district. And while the building is a project of its own time, it is compatible to the current and surrounding developments without actually duplicating it. The proposed development reflects a conscious effort to respect the architecture of the existing historic buildings and material scale and proportion. The proposed development improves the aesthetics character of the city, will enhance property values, and provides a creatively designed development that preserves the character and vitality. And lastly, the proposal follows a comprehensive plan and historic district requirements set forth by the zoning code if the DRO is applied. And as you know, there is a public meeting associated with the requirements for the DRO, and I assume you want to go into that public hearing, or unless you have questions for me. That would be for the next agenda item.
Okay. Before we start the public hearing, I want to remind all attendees, the commission, that the issue before us today is the height determination, the 53-foot height determination, and that's the only aspect of the rezoning or the DRO that we're applying today. We will be more than willing to take comments from the applicant and or the members of the audience. However, any of the comments or questions have to do with anything besides just the height and the DRO issue, we're not here to discuss those with you today. As always, those can be submitted in writing to the Planning Commission, but the hearing is restricted to the DRO issue on the height of the property that's being proposed. Tim, do you have any other comments or issues that we need to address?
I do not, unless there are questions.
Okay, first let's start with the commission. Any questions by the commission members? or issues?
I don't have any.
Okay. In order to start the public hearing, is there any comments from the audience?
You're declaring it open.
Yes, declare the public hearing open at this moment, at this time. If you could, please identify yourself and your address.
Yep. Ben Southerly, Troy Historic Preservation Alliance, 110 and a half West Main Street. In regards to the approval of the height of the proposed replacement structure, I would like to ask for some clarification. If the height of this proposed replacement building were rejected either by the Troy Planning Commission or by the Troy City Council, would the city allow the demolition of the current building to proceed anyway? And of course, this question assumes that the appeal of the Planning Commission and the BZA decisions currently in court is unsuccessful. So is it possible to get some clarification of that? Because I think that would be good for the public to know before decisions are made in terms of what this proposal, either its approval or its rejection, would mean for our historic downtown.
Mr. Chair, I don't know that that has anything to do with the height and the DRO itself. I do know that the court has a stay on demolition, and so at this point the staff is not approving any demolition application unless the judge would, unless there was a final determination by the court allowing that to occur.
So rejecting this proposal, the DRO application, I think the public deserves to have clarity around what implications that would have. So I would hope before the Planning Commission takes a vote on that, that you would clarify that for the public. The Troy Historic Preservation Alliance asks that the Planning Commission table this application at this time. We believe it is inappropriate and premature for the Planning Commission to consider this replacement, the height of this replacement building at this time, because the building, this is one of the issues being considered in the administrative appeal currently in Miami County Common Pleas Court. Specifically, the Troy Board of Zoning Appeals in November determined that the applicant's rescue plan failed to sufficiently and fully mitigate the adverse effect of the proposed removal of the building as required by Troy Zoning Code Section 1143.2210B2. Further, the Board of Zoning Appeals determined that the applicant's reuse plan did not provide definite plans for reuse of the site as required by Section 1143.2210B3. While the Board of Zoning Appeals approved the certificate of appropriateness for demolition with certain modifications, it is our contention on appeal that the rescue plan and reuse plan were prerequisites for such a decision. In other words, the Planning Commission and BZA cannot balance the factors of demolition versus preservation as required by the City of Troy Zoning Code after the fact. We believe that this issue should be resolved by the judge before any application for a new structure, including the proposed height before you today, is considered. We are concerned that if the plan...
I need to interrupt you a moment, Ben. The issue before us is not a matter of whether or not the building is going to be torn down. It's a matter of the DRO allowing in this particular location a height that's basically the same height as the existing building.
So Mr. McGarry, we're concerned that if the Planning Commission approves the height of the new structure, then that decision would create additional procedural issues and avenues for appeal. And we would like to avoid the unnecessary time and expense of having numerous appeals and court cases pending for this single project. We believe that significant information will come to light during the appeal. Even if the court would allow the demolition to proceed, we believe that this additional information would be relevant and necessary for you to make a fully informed decision about the proposed replacement building, including its height. Thank you for considering our request to table this matter at the present time.
Thank you. Does staff have any comment on those issues?
I do not.
Clarification? Anybody from the commission?
No.
Is there anyone else from the public that wishes to speak?
Good afternoon, I'm Jeremy Tome. I'm an attorney and I represent Cheryl Cheadle, who is present today, who's an owner of adjoining building, as well as Evil Empire, who's an owner of an adjoining building. And I am here in the capacity of representing Mr. Southerly in the Troy Historic Preservation Alliance. I understand you've bifurcated this proceeding. You're putting the height issue up first. I understand that, but I want to make sure that for what I anticipate will be further proceedings, both within the city and within the courts, I want to make it clear that we're objecting to any consideration of this. We don't believe that you have any authority to consider this or to make any decisions regarding it, and that the appropriate process or procedure, as Mr. Southerly has said more specifically, that it should be tabled or denied in its entirety. I'll reserve the rest of my comments for the second part that you'll be considering. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is there any? Sir, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. McGarry. Bradley Barnwell, 105 Crestwood Drive, concerned citizen. Now, I know that you've bifurcated this, but I really don't think it should have been bifurcated because, number one, what you're considering right now is predicated on the building being demolished and a new building being put up. Two things I want to point out to you. Number one, as Mr. Tome and Mr. Southerly have pointed out, this is currently in an administrative appeal with the Miami County Court of Common Pleas. But secondly, and most importantly, is the fact that even if this were to be rejected in the courts, there is currently a 180-day council-approved moratorium on demolition permits, which was passed back in December. And I see Mr. Titterington over there leaning in your ear, Mr. McGarry, and I want to know from you, you were there when that was passed, how can we be considering a DRO application on a building that may not even be built? It's not, and I want you to answer that very carefully.
No,
Because I don't, the DRO,
DRO is a zoning issue.
on a building that may not even be able to be built, Mr. McGarry. You're trying to spin it to make it something that it isn't. Either this is predicated on demolition of the building that is there, which is currently tied up in an appeal.
We have no control over where this is going to go with the demolition. That's an issue that's, as you said, is in the hands of the court.
But it is also a moratorium, there is also a moratorium out there which was passed in December. Mayor Odom, Mr. Titterington sat in the council meeting when it was passed. So are you trying to tell me then that if this fails in the courts, that you're not going to honor the moratorium?
No, I didn't say that.
Well,
This is strictly,
Mr. Chair, this public hearing is about the height.
Which is, as I said, Mr. Titterington, is predicated on the demolition of the previous building.
No, it's not. It's an application that's in front of.
And it should not even be
It's
considered. And the
issue-
fact you're considering it shows me that you have no qualifications, you don't have any regard for the legislation that was passed. Thank you.
thanks, sir. Are there any other comments?
Hello, Mark Stemmer, 2864 Black Horse Court. I'm the structural engineer for looking at the property and the demo and the reuse. And part of the request to me was to put together some documents to define what the reuse is going to be. My understanding is part of the application is reuse needs to be defined so that it can be approved and move forward. Well, part of the reuse question is, how tall can the building be? So we need to know how tall the building's going to be allowed to be before we can finish what the building's going to look like and move forward. So I think that's a very valid reason for this committee to decide what the height of the building can be, so at least planning can occur to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Are there any other comments from the public? Hearing none, are there any other comments from the commission? And we do want to close the hearing at this time, public hearing, and leave it to the commission discussion.
I'd like to make a motion. We, the Troy Planning Commission, with reviewing the application to apply for the downtown Riverfront Overlay District to the property located at the 112 through 118 West Main Street, that the commission finds the criteria under the Planning Commission shall review said applications as set forth in section 1143.25Q1C of the zoning code. I believe it's met the application, therefore the Troy Planning Commission, we formally recommend that the application apply the downtown Riverfront Overlay District to the property of 112 through 118 West Main Street to be approved as submitted.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. We have a roll call vote.
Mr. Westmeyer,
Yes.
Mr. McGarry,
Yes.
Mayor Hoda,
Yes.
Mr. Titterington,
Yes.
Mr. Wolke,
Yes.
Mrs. Early.
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Okay. The next order of business is the historical district application for the 112-118 West Main Street. Subject to the court determining the demolition of the current structure is to proceed. Exterior alterations including but not limited to building facade windows, setback height, roof, historical plaque location, and exterior lighting. Again, the order of applicants, 116 West Main LLC. Does staff have a report?
Yes, we do. Thank you. Before I get into the report, I wanted to give some clarification to the Planning Commission on some items that we received, some questions ahead of the meeting. One, I did want to reiterate that this is not an act on the demolition application. This is a certificate of appropriateness for a new construction of a building. Furthermore, I think there were some questions that we were aware of brought to us regarding the canopies on the front of the building. One of the questions that was posed was, are these going to be permanent? The answer would be yes, it would be attached to the building. The second one was the material type. It'll be canvas material. It will not be a metal awning, if that was the question that was brought up. So I wanted to clarify those two questions before I got into the report. In addition, I think they received, or you received, an email with some questions on it. And that was stated by, I believe, Mr. Tome, who is in the audience. I wanted to address some of the items he wrote in the email to you. One, he talked about a stay. His letter states, any determination regarding the submitted plans would be inappropriate and premature as there is currently a judicial stay on the demolition permits for this property. I want to let you know we did speak to our outside counsel, legal counsel. It is not our law director, it's an outside counsel that we had to go through for this case. And it was advised to us to proceed unless the applicant wishes to withdraw the application. I did speak with the applicant who opted to not withdraw the application. So according to our legal advice, we should move forward with the application in front of you.
That's withdraw or table, either,
Withdraw or table, yep.
and the applicant does not want to do either.
That is my understanding.
Correct.
Okay. Number two, it talked about an incomplete application. I think there was a discussion about what goes on behind the building. I think this was brought up at the last meeting. I think Sandy brought this question up about what we have the building, you had it lay out in front of you, what goes behind it. Right now, there's kind of a courtyard that's paved with a wall behind it. That would be removed and be green space. So it would all be green space for the tenants of that building to enjoy. It would be seed and straw, grow up, green space in the back. So that would be the remaining space that's approximately maybe 100 feet. So just want to clarify that. In addition, there's a paper in front of you. One of the items too was regarding the math and the calculations and the bond amount. The bond amount that was provided was originally $1.5 million for the construction to bond the construction cost of the building. The applicant has resubmitted a new bond amount in the tune of $2 million. which was presented to us right before this meeting. I did run downstairs and make copies for you and put those at your items for your review. Just for clarification, the application would be for a bond that is at $2 million, not the original $1.5 million. So those are the items I wanted to clarify beforehand. The application is essentially the same that you heard in the introduction. I don't know if you want me to go through this in detail as I did last time, or simply open up for questions from the Planning Commission members.
Pardon me?
I don't need a specific detail.
You've answered my question.
Yeah, are there any other questions on the details?
Well, no, however, I do have something that I want to mention. At the last meeting, I did ask that Mr. Cappers be given an opportunity to comment on this, and he did. I know I received it, and I think Mr. McGarry received it. But for the benefit of the rest of the commissions, and staff has answered one of his questions, but as for the building that was presented, it looks on paper to be pretty stark. However, if the lintels and the area above the first floor running the length of the building are to be limestone, that should look nice. Also, I have concerns about the look of the canopies over the entrance. Are these permanent? And again, you responded to that. Of what color and material? But overall, I think the building is appropriate for the site.
Thank you, Mr. Wolke. Yes, sir.
Tim, one of the clarifications you made was with regards to behind the building. You said the area, I guess that would be south of the building that's still on the site, will be green space, seed and straw.
Correct.
Compare that to the current building that's there. My understanding when I looked at it and viewed it is that the area that would be green space is currently the courtyard area, so it's open right now.
Correct. I think if we had the capabilities of taking an aerial and then superimposing what is being proposed on top of the aerial and looking down from above, the only differences I think you would see is right now there's kind of a garage that runs south. That would not exist with this new plan, and then everything else there would be green space. I hope that clarifies your question.
Tim, I have one question also. Ellen brought up the lintels in the decorative pieces. Those are all, I believe, cast stone, right?
That's correct.
Okay. When they say cast stone, that being like a cementous type material, it's not synthetic plastic or fiberglass or anything like that?
That is correct. I could refer to the applicant if you wish to get clarification on that instead of it coming from me.
Does the applicant want to?
It would be a, should I come out?
Yes, yes, please. And please, introduce yourself again.
Again, Mark Stemmer. The material is a cast stone. It's a cementous-based concrete to look like natural stone. It would not be plastic or fiberglass or any other material like that.
Okay. Are there any other comments by the commission? Or any recommendations for action by the commission?
Go ahead.
I would move to approve.
I'll second.
Are you going to take comments on this?
It's not a normal part of the procedure, so.
It was before. I'll ask one. So you're going to refuse public comments on this part?
Sure, comments after the meeting.
There are no general public comments, Mr. Toom. The last section was mandated by the zoning code that there's a public hearing on the DRO. These are two separate things, and on aesthetic reviews, the Planning Commission doesn't have public comments.
Okay. even though that it was represented that there would be comments on the bifurcated second part.
No, say that again?
It was represented that comments regarding the second part of the application, the review, would be reserved for that part. Now, I made it clear that I would reserve the rest of my comments for when that part was completed.
Do you have further comments beyond what was submitted to Tim that he's already addressed?
I want to make sure that the comments that I've submitted are part of the record.
The email
Yes.
that you're talking about, we will make that part of the record. It is a public record anyway, we can make sure it's a public record here. Mr. Chair, do you want a motion to that effect?
Yeah, I think we best, Dave.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Second,
Roll call.
roll call, please.
I'm sorry, who did the second?
Mr. Wolf.
Thank you. Mr. McGarry?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes.
Mr. Titterington?
Yes.
Mr. Wolke?
Yes.
Mrs. Ehrlich?
Yes.
Mr. Westmeyer?
Yes.
That motion is approved.
One last objection I want to note for the record. You were given direction by the BZA, if you were to review this, you were to approve or deny. What you're saying here is you're giving a conditional approval on their conditional approval. I just want to make it clear that there's nothing in the ordinance that gives the authority to give conditional approvals pending some future outcome, or what's otherwise known as a spring clause. There's no authority for you to do that. It's not right for decision, so I want to make that objection clear on the record.
Objected taken. Okay, where do we stand? We're going to vote?
We have not, I know the mayor made the motion to approve the historic district application. I did not have who seconded it.
Okay.
I think I did.
Yeah,
Okay.
I will.
Okay. Okay.
So we have a motion on the table to approve the historic district application. Do we have a roll call vote, please?
Mayor Oda?
Yes.
Mr. Titterington?
Yes.
Mr. Wolke?
Yes.
Mrs. Ehrlich?
Yes.
Mr. Westmeyer?
Yes.
Mr. McGarry?
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Okay. Staff have any other business?
Nothing further today, thank you.
Thank you. Commission have any other business or items for the agenda?
Sir.
Move to adjourn.
Second?
To your roll call now. Do I have an affirmation? All in favor?
Aye.